Talk about corruption, you talk about legal processes. How does that all apply to you think of what's going on in New York about these potential indictments against the former president?
Well, I think this is evidence of government corruption. You're seeing it seeing it almost as it happens. You have Democratic politicians, an elected politician in New York, a left-leaning jurisdiction, seemingly target the president on pretextual, unprecedented legal grounds to try to jail him. He's the putative challenger to President Biden. He's the likely primary challenge. You know, he'll probably win on the primary. And the idea that you would have this, as I said, pretextual, novel, as the New York Times called it, risky legal theory, to try to jail Biden's chief opponent. It's so disturbing, and it undermines the rule of law. It's an attack on, as I say, our Republican form of government, and it seems to me incumbent upon every elected official from the president on down to denounce this.
Well, if the president potentially did something wrong as far as these money payments to Stormy Daniels, shouldn't it be investigated?
It has been investigated, and this is even among the Bragg staff, Alvin Bragg, who's the district attorney in New York. They call it the zombie case, because they've been walking around the office for years and years, and no one thought there was a credible legal a legal claim or legal issue with the president. The feds that looked at it, they were very interested in. They had raised the legal issue initially by causing, or really forcing, Michael Cohen to plead guilty to campaign finance related issues on these payments, but they never pursued it. And now it's years later, 5 years later, and they decided to pursue it less than a few weeks, I guess, was it 5-6 weeks after the president announced he was running for re-election.
You used the word seemingly political targeting. I think, if I got it right, why do you couch it as such?
Oh, well, I shouldn't have couched it as such. It's political targeting. I think, look, there are three Democratic political operations. In New York City, left-leaning Democratic politicians are trying to jail Trump. In Fulton County, Georgia, left-leaning politicians are trying to jail Trump. And here in Washington, D.C., another left-leaning jurisdiction, Democratic politicians are trying to jail Trump. And I tell you, I suspect Putin and Xi in Beijing recognize this type of activity. They're going after the regime's opponents here in D.C. or New York and Georgia, all part of a piece in terms of the Democratic Party, anti-Trump apparatus. And, if any other country was targeting the putative political opponent of the president, there'd be no doubt about what's going on here. And here we're supposed to pretend that these folks are acting otherwise, and I don't think many Americans are going to buy it.
We heard Speaker McCarthy call potentially for DA Bragg to come before Congress and testify on these issues. Is that something that should the activity of Congress?
Yeah, there's urgency, it seems to me, to investigate what's happening here. I think the President Trump's civil rights are being violated here. Trump is a federal candidate, the leading candidate for the Republican Party, and you have a local Democratic politician trying to jail him on pretextual grounds. And I think Congress has an interest in making sure that a major presidential candidate and a former president isn't turned into a political prisoner. And I want to know what the Justice Department's role in this has been. Has there been coordination, communications? And what changed over the course of 5 years that they decided to target Trump with this unprecedented application of the law?
It was Senator Rand Paul who put out on his Twitter feed saying a Trump indictment would be a disgusting abuse of power. And then he adds the DA should be put in jail. Does that go too far?
Well, I mean, I think he should be investigated. And I think that investigation, no one should be immune from investigation. And if he's abusing his authority, he should be investigated. Going to jail, I think he was just being cheeky there. You know, there are federal laws that prohibit people from violating civil rights of folks in situations like this, President Trump. And I think President Trump's a crime victim here. I think this is a corrupt district attorney investigation. It's politicized. And, you know, if I were the governor of New York, I'd be trying to rein it in any way I could under law. You know, the president should be denouncing this directly. And on top of that, all elected politicians in Washington, D.C., here in Congress, they should be expressing some urgent denunciations of this. And I'm not seeing it. And I think Americans should take note of those politicians and political commentators who are supporting this effort to put someone in jail based on their political affiliations, not because of anything they supposedly did wrong. Because, you know, if it's Trump one day, it could be the rest of us another day.
You talked about denunciations. It was the former president early on saying that protests should take place. As far as that, what did you think of that call?
The First Amendment applies to supporters of Donald Trump. The First Amendment applies to those who are critics of Alvin Bragg. And the left would like to pretend that the right has no right to protest, and they pretend that any calls for conservatives to protest is a call to violence. The reality is that the left has regularly used violence to achieve political ends. The January 6th issue was a disturbance that got out of control. It wasn't a planned violent effort like we see regularly going on in cities across America over the last few years. So people have a right to protest, and if they want to, you know, they should exercise it freely and peacefully. But of course, that goes without saying.